So ladies and gentlemen, fellow Kryptonians out there, today we are going to dive into the seemingly final trailer that released the other day, as so far I've only done a reaction and the whole first thoughts breakdown of it, so it's time to get into more details and theories here, as well as some of the brand new TV spots that have also released recently. And I also haven't done this in a minute, but so far in 2025, up until today, 58.8% of you guys watching my videos are subscribed, but that means 41.2% of you are not. So perhaps if you're new or if you've been here a little while, but maybe you haven't hit the subscribe button, maybe today is the day, and I hope you enjoy all the future coverage to come. So at the beginning of the trailer, of course, it picks up with all of this devastation in Metropolis, with all new angles of buildings collapsing, and we can even spot the Luthor building towering over every other one in the background there, safe and sound as destruction ensues all around it, as we hear Lex Luthor talk about Superman with I guess you could say disdain in his voice, to say the least, saying Superman, the most powerful being on planet Earth. Now, we still don't know exactly what is causing these buildings to collapse, but it is likely due to the citywide split that's happening, as we see later on in the trailer. And what a way to even showcase the most powerful being on planet Earth, as there is one building in particular that is about to collapse over this bridge here. Like, even directly on top of these people, and particularly this one woman here, who from another angle of this scene, from some TV spots, is desperately trying to start her car in order to get out of there, which is when Superman flies in really fast to help stop the building from collapsing on top of all of these people. Makes me wonder if all the people in the building are okay and perhaps maybe got out in time as the city split was approaching it, or if they happened to kind of be okay as Superman stopped like the full extent of the crash down to the ground of the building. But hey, I guess that's perhaps some wishful thinking there. Now, I do love this shot of how the lady looks back at her savior, and you get the epic wide shot of Superman hovering there in the aftermath, just looking down on her, making sure she's all good. So as Luthor's commentary continues, we then get the shots of him arriving in the Arctic with Ultraman, Eve Teschmacher, and the engineer. Now, in some of those news stills from Entertainment Weekly, we can see how Eve is literally getting selfies with Ultraman. Even in this shot here, you could see that she's like the first one to look at the view and is all happy and smiley, just probably thinking about the content that she can get out of this, as from pretty much all of the footage that we've got of her, she can't stop doing selfies to her social media, as the Hammer of Boravia is literally about to murder people with his heat vision. As Superman is falling to the ground, she's still posing. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I can't tell at this point if that's gonna make her an entertaining character or just irritating. And perhaps deliberately so, because she's obviously being portrayed to be very over the top in these ways in the movie. Now, I really like this particular new shot that we got of them outside the front door of the Fortress of Solitude. Previously, all we saw to get it open from the sneak peek preview was Krypto just barking, and perhaps, I guess, the Fortress of Solitude can detect the Kryptonian DNA in Superman right outside. But as we see here, I feel like this will be a scene where it's taking a moment for the door to open. So we have Eve kind of like bending over, looking really close, and it kind of reminds me of that one meme, as if to try and see where the doors even begin to open, and Lex could just be like, just give it a moment. And I think it will probably play out in some kind of way like that. But the bigger question is, and the one that's been on our minds for like the last several months, ever since the first teasers, why does it open for Lex Luthor? Well, of course, all signs point to Ultraman here, and all while we have this confirmation now that his character name is indeed Ultraman, there's still mystery behind who exactly is under that mask. And we'll poke into that a little bit later, as the trailer does show some maskless scenes, although they're still quite blotted out. But back on points here, the door either opens to Ultraman, as he could be a creation of Lex Luthor's, spliced with some of Superman's DNA, as we do know, by the way, just in case you didn't know, that Luthor literally does create creatures or people out of Petri dishes, as James Gunn recently revealed, such as the creature known as Mr. Handsome, who goes around on that floating platform in Lex's prison location or pocket dimension. So perhaps Mr. Handsome was some of the earlier works of Lex Luthor before he could create a more perfected being out of a Petri dish, one infused with Superman's DNA. But as of right now, we still truly don't know, and I love that we kind of don't know for sure. It's also possible that Lex could have something on him that opens it, but I find that less likely than the other option. Which is when we then see them enter the Fortress of Solitude, and this time, compared to the official trailer where it kind of cuts off right as this Fortress robot is diving after Lex, we can see what happens next as one of the engineer's discs slice the living crap out of that poor Fortress robot, and that's when there's like a billion sparks that go right over Lex's face without him even so much as flinching a millimeter. Now, as Lex approaches the Kryptonian console, you can even see how half of it is powered up on the left, but on the right, it's been damaged, likely from Ultraman taking out these Fortress robots here. At this point, we can hear Luthor's lines have been stitched together in the trailer as we see scenes of Superman being apprehended by Ultraman, with Luthor saying, "We finally meet. Now, as planned, I'll destroy you. And of course, that reporter you do interviews with." So I think some of these lines actually come from when Superman goes to Luthor Corp right into Lex's office to confront him about everything he's been up to. And we know that from like old Entertainment Weekly stills and even a scene in the behind the scenes teaser. And we know that they haven't met in the first 3 years of Clark being Superman in Metropolis until this movie. And yes, we've recently learned that he's been active as Superman for 3 years. So I think when he says, "we finally meet," this could very well be that moment from the stills. Now, from recent TV spots, we can also see Superman exclaiming to Luthor, "That's my greatest strength." Now, obviously, we don't know the full context of this scene, but it seems to be in the same location, and I just really can't wait for scenes like this to unfold and see Lex and Superman eye to eye on screen. As for the line of Lex shouting, "Who raised you as a child?" that in of itself kind of gets me excited, just hearing the ferocity and demand in his voice. And I just think this could be Lex interrogating Superman when he's in that pocket dimension prison. And perhaps at that point, Luthor is there with his pistol that we saw in the first teaser. Maybe Metamorpho is putting pressure on Superman with his kryptonite hand. And Luthor just might be so desperate to get more answers about the Man of Steel, as he just wants to completely, well, A, learn more about him, but dismantle anything and everyone who could possibly have supported him and support him in present day. Also, as a side note here, as we're kind of on the Kent topic with, who raised you as a child, we've also had a recent Father's Day TV spot, and it's exactly what I was hoping for out of a scene with Clark back at the Kent farm. Now, this doesn't really expand on the scene that much, but it gave me a little nugget that made me super excited to see it more than ever. So we had Pa Kent say to Clark, "Son, you don't seem quite yourself," and Clark says, "I'm not who I thought I was." And then it just gets better, as we hear those familiar lines from the other trailers in where Pa Kent says, "Your choices, that's what makes you who you are." But then we get an additional line, and we hear Pruitt Taylor Vince's voice crack as he delivers the next one, saying, "I couldn't be more proud of you." And Clark says, "I love you, Pa." Like, that moment really hit me and actually made my eyes well up with some tears, because if you haven't seen it for yourself, trust me, go watch it. I would play it right now, but they're super hot on audio copyright. James Gunn does not fail to hit emotionally, and this one's gonna hit hard. Now, I'm assuming that, as I've speculated about before, this is after Clark has gone back home to heal from, for example, whatever is going on in this scene. And with those veins that are apparent in his face, it's almost like he has maybe some kryptonite poisoning or something like that. But one of my old theories was that ever since we got teased with these scenes in that first teaser trailer, that Clark might just, want to get some good old Pa Kent advice after perhaps Superman's name has been smeared in public. So perhaps he begins to doubt himself, which is a typical Superman thing to explore in previous stories. Hence the line of maybe, "I'm not who I thought I was." Now, I kind of hope that the line, "I'm not who I thought I was," doesn't adhere to one of those leaks. Now, I'm not going to reveal that here. Don't worry if you've avoided it, because if you know, you know. And this could just be Pa Kent saying, well, that leak doesn't matter, son, because your choices, that's what makes you who you are. And that leak detail doesn't define you, kind of thing. Like, we're gonna have to wait and see, I suppose. Plus, when it comes to leaks, there could be all kinds of extra context that we get in the film that clarify it to make even more sense. So I don't know. I just wanted to address that because I know some people have been thinking about that with the Father's Day TV spot. But then, as the trailer unfolds with some familiar shots, we get a couple of new angles of Superman redirecting the Kaiju's flames near the Lawtech building. And I honestly, I really do think the flying shots like this look really, really great. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we get the shot of Superman being blasted back by who we can assume to be Ultraman. We can see that he likely crashed down here from the ceiling there. And I think that this links to this scene from the behind-the-scenes teaser we got a while back where Superman really does seem to be struggling in some kind of fight. So I do think that's the same location. Now, I want to give some warning here for a possible timestamp skip because, and don't worry, I'll tell you when to skip, because let's just say when I zoom in on this figure here, it's actually really fascinating because you can see that they've literally blotted out the character's face. Same with the other shot of Superman fighting him later on in the trailer. It's almost actually like little ink blots here and there that you're seeing on screen, hopefully. But there is one moment where one of the blots is quite transparent and you can make out a face, which I kind of want to talk about now. So when I first saw this in my reaction video, I was kind of like, what the heck is going on here? There's blatantly not a mask anymore, and as many of you pointed out to me, that is just long hair. But you can see the blackened kind of block on the face. But in this specific frame that you should be seeing on screen, the more I zoom in, all while there's a bit of a block, you should be able to make out the face of a man, basically kind of going "ree" as he's shooting out his heat vision. So essentially, using his heat vision with his mouth open, kind of like roaring or screaming while he's doing it. Now, sure, like this still doesn't completely give away who this is. Like, is it David Corenswet? So the classic Ultraman theory of a clone of Superman, or is it someone different? Like, it still does remain to be seen for sure. Either way, Ultraman does seem to have long hair because you could even see the hair kind of wave back in one frame as the heat vision spits out. I think this person also may have a beard, which is making some people wonder if, when Corenswet was preparing for the role, he also grew out his hair a teeny bit, but he also had quite a beard growing out. And if maybe they did that on purpose and gave him a bit of an extra wig to make his hair longer. Honestly, I'm not sure. That could have just been Corenswet kind of going crazy in the gym and just growing his beard out kind of thing. It really is all a bit too vague, but I do find it cool that we can slightly make out a face here, because I'm telling you, in other shots, it's not just the hair covering the face, they've literally blotted it out, like with some technology to kind of track the face and like cover it to avoid spoilers. Now, I also assume that this fight is a continuation of the fight that we see later on in the trailer with this same character again, likely Ultraman, or it takes place in at least the same sequence but beforehand. So I guess it could be the kind of final showdown with Lex's top thug. Now, as for when the stadium fight takes place, before or after this, that remains to be seen, but just kind of given that the mask has come off at this point, I would say that the stadium fight takes place sometime before this. But I do wonder what will actually happen to this character, like Ultraman, after all of this is said and done. I mean, it's not as though Superman would kill him, so would he just really be put into a different prison after Superman wins the day? I mean, if he's a clone, is he gonna maybe genetically destabilize in a Bizarro-esque kind of way, like some old theories, which I guess would just solve the problem for the plot of the movie and Superman ultimately? I really don't know which way it's gonna go. Also, as for where this fight is taking place, well, this connects to the whole city-wide crack that's happening in this trailer and how my early theories of it maybe possibly being Lex's pocket dimension somehow bleeding out into reality, like that may perhaps be true. And it could be linked to whatever this bloody kind of black hole forming situation could be. I mean, man, I really am not sure what is truly going on here, other than it does seem like one is forming as Mr. Terrific is telling Superman to not play around, and in the corner there of that shot, you can see it is pulling everything into its bottomless pit. But really, like, the most curious thing is why this black hole is forming, and obviously this is all complete and utter speculation, but I am wondering if Lex just kind of has a screw it moment, and after Superman escapes, does he perhaps manually detonate a backup plan of his to kind of initiate something like this black hole forming, and thus the city just absolutely being split into two, which is honestly borderline incomprehensible levels of damage to Metropolis. Something that I still have no idea how they're going to fix after this, unless Superman can literally kind of push both sides back together. But man, like that is me reaching. But maybe Lex thinks through doing this, it will once again make Superman look bad and as though he's the cause of all of this. And that's why there's dozens and dozens of Lex's Raptors being sent in, perhaps in an effort to kind of look like he's saving the day and get that adoration he desires. And I want to stress, like, truly, just look at how many of them are coming towards Superman. And again, look at the size of the split in the city. Like, it is insane. Now, also on the flip side of that theory, perhaps Lex has given up with trying to look like the good guy to the people and his plan of defaming Superman. And at this point, as I was just kind of getting into, he might just be willing to do anything and everything to destroy Superman. And so he sends in every last resource that he has to take him out, which leads to Superman and Krypto's battle with the Lex Troopers, that brilliant heat vision tornado spin scene, and other things like that. Now, on that note, actually, I do want to say that I agree with plenty of people pointing out to me some of my concerns in how Superman can pull his punches, but especially his heat vision. So him heat visioning all of these Lex Troopers is more than likely Superman just kind of adjusting the dial in his head somewhere to be like, okay, let's kind of put it to a quarter strength so it doesn't slice and dice through everyone, but just kind of blows them the feck around. You've also got to love how Krypto is directing some of the Raptors literally into the heat vision in this shot. It's the kind of blink and you'll miss it thing. Ultimately, though, here, after Lex goes all out at this point in the plot, there's just absolutely no way he's not getting arrested here. And that may seem obvious, but I kind of want to talk about it because I hope that the story makes it worth it for him. Because a big part of his shtick is that he feels like he deserves all of the adoration that Superman gets. Like, he's the one who has worked hard for this, where Superman just came in and had it all come so easily to him and get people's attention. Like, recently, Gunn and Nicholas Hoult have hammered down in interviews that a big thing for Lex is the ego and the feeling as though he is deserving of all of that. So for him to just toss it all away here, sending dozens and dozens of Lex Troopers and Raptors and basically turning into a domestic terrorist and harming the world, which he protests that he is there to help and better humanity, I mean, I guess it is a believable Lex thing that he would do if he's been pushed far enough in his obsession to stop Superman. Now, we also get this shot of the black hole, and I'm kind of wondering if this is when it first appears, or perhaps it's like the closing moments and where they're trying to contain it. Now, we do see Superman with Metamorpho using his powers to kind of create these weird-looking tendrils that look like, I don't know, they look weird, to kind of maybe more or less hold on to Superman and prevent them from being sucked in to this black hole-looking thing. Now, of course, we see Superman holding baby Joey, which is Metamorpho's son, and it's possible Superman is even using his breath to push them back out of the hole. As if you kind of look very closely, and if I zoom in here, we get to see some flickering in front of his face. So I am wondering if this is being used to kind of propel them backwards and escape. I think you could just argue, though, that can't Superman just fly back? But who knows what limitations he's working with here, and, you know, maybe he's too sapped of energy to do that, but he can must some super breath. It's hard to know, but this does seem to be the black hole that has formed, likely as a result of whatever has caused this dimension to collide with the outside reality of Metropolis. Next up is that shot of Lois piloting the ship, but the interesting thing most people didn't really see, other than Perry toking on his fat cigar, is actually by Jimmy's Lord Tech laptop. So if we kind of zoom in here, there's this investigation or evidence board, and I think it's safe to assume this is exactly what the Daily Planet have been putting together in order to take down Lex in a legal way, but also just expose his plans to the world in the name of truth and justice at any cost. Now, this is probably a good thing, but a lot of what is being shown here is too out of focus to see, but there are a couple of things. So I suspect that we could have like a military leader here or representative of Boravia in this photo, as we do see that same star logo that is actually also seen on the Hammer of Boravia's suit, even though we know that's just one big ploy under Lex Luthor to put Ultraman in a Boravian symbolized suit. But it appears that Lois is just trying to piece together how Lex has some kind of dealings with Boravia. Now, I believe also the photos to the left could be of Eve Teschmacher, and perhaps maybe her involvement, maybe even how she's using her social media to swing the tide of Superman's opinion online. I've actually had a couple of you reach out to me in socials through the DMs and ask if this is Millie Alcock's Supergirl in the middle photo. And I have to say, I don't think it is. I totally see the resemblance that people are pointing out, because it kind of looks like Millie Alcock with shorter hair. But this Kara in the DCU and Supergirl really has longer hair, as we've seen from set photos. Not to mention, I just don't see why she'd be on the evidence board from the Daily Planet anyway. I mean, I guess you could argue that this could be her from a few years ago before getting long hair, but again, I think it's probably just another photo of Eve Teschmacher. And I'm still fairly convinced that through David Corenswet saying in an interview quite a while back now that Krypto is more of a foster situation. That was a very important word for him to use, because that tells me he's been given Krypto to look after, to foster, if you will, for a certain period of time, while Kara is away. And I think what makes sense in this universe is that she's, ever since arriving to Earth from Argo City several years ago, that she's been in college or something to help, induct herself into this way of life, because compared to her cousin, she hasn't been raised amongst humanity like he has, rather than her being secretly someone like the Hammer of Boravia, like some people have been speculating. I'm sorry, I'm not insulting those people. I really don't think that's the case. Now, other little bonus scenes that we were teased with that I'm looking forward to is seeing Guy Gardner butt heads with Superman, thinking that he can take him on. I love getting an up-close look at Mr. Terrific and his T-spheres here, and I have to say, I am totally on board with those who say that they wish he could stand on the T-spheres instead, like he does in the comics. And of course, the movie could have easily have done that CGI to make it look like he's hovering and flying, rather than this somewhat more awkward contraption. Now, that's not me hating on it, it's just, I think it would look cooler, like many other people are pointing out, if he was hovering with the T-spheres rather than just kind of like Hello. But maybe that will come in the future. I'm also loving the Daily Planet little tidbits that we're getting in the TV spots, like Ron Troop saying, "Hey, loser," to Clark, and Clark is just kind of killing him with kindness through rolling with it and saying, "You're a loser," and laughing it off. And then we have Jimmy and Clark talking about how the Hammer of Boravia pulverized Superman, and Clark is trying to say, no, I wouldn't say totally pulverized him. And then just one of them having Lois saying, eventually people are going to find out that you're Superman, with Clark saying, yeah, but the glasses, essentially parodying the logic of it all in the movie itself. So I think I'm going to end this video there. That is more or less the ramble that I wanted to do. It's certainly long enough of a ramble for you guys to chew on some of my theories and expanded thoughts. So let me know anything and everything about what I said down in the comments below. Would greatly appreciate it if you've got to this point in the video, maybe hitting the like button. Also, if you got this far, maybe prove it by typing with whatever you were gonna type down in the comments, hashtag make a move, big blue. But until next time, guys, hope you enjoyed the video once again. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Kryptonians in the next video. Goodbye.